So, in generalizing the labeling theory, Cullen, Agnew, and Wilcox discussed the distinctiveness of the approach, stating we focus our attention not on the behavior of the offenders, but on the behavior of those who label, react to, and otherwise seek to control the offenders. Page 193. During the Stanford experiment, the control factor became evident. The guards were clear in their mission, and that was to assert dominance and to control the prisoners. On the other hand, the prisoners simply wanted to keep their individuality. They didn't really want to conform to this new identity the experiment had given them, and I think that is what prompted a lot of the confrontation that occurred during the experiment. I think the labeling theory is very accurate in why the guards' behavior evolved and how the prisoners tried to kind of win a losing battle. Given their roles, they were not going to be in a position of power or make the choices that they wanted to make. So I think that that kind of made them a little angry, and they were going to continue to try anything to, be an individual when you really didn't have any individuality. I think one of the key concepts that led to the most of the confrontation was the interdependency. The guards kind of controlled when they could go to the bathroom, when they could eat, when they had time to walk out in the hallways, and some of their sleeping schedules. I think that this kind of made the prisoners a little angry because they didn't really have to their freedom before this experiment. They didn't have to rely on anybody for those things. So I think that's also what kind of prompted it. I think there was a clear struggle to assert their independence on both sides. According to the Stanford experiment, the first day went by with no incident, but the prisoners decided to rebel on the second day, removing ID numbers, stocking caps, placed bed frames in front of their door to stop the guards from coming in. I wasn't shocked by this behavior either. I was more shocked by the reactions. The guards initially started to turn on each other, suggesting that who was ever on the ship before was too lenient, that got this idea in their head that they could act this way. But then over time you kind of saw there was a stronger solidarity between the guards rather than the prisoners. I think Jackson and Hay highlight that through the process of symbolic interaction, the stigma of labeling produces a deviant self-concept that ultimately becomes the individual's master status and therefore encourages their deviance. Page 303. Rather than thinking of deviance here, I kind of wanted to look specifically at the guards' behavior. The experiment stated that during this process there were three groups of guards: the good guys, the tough but fair guards, and the hostile, arbitrary, and inventive in their forms of prisoner humiliation. None of these really stood out to in their primary personality test. I think that by giving them this power that they wouldn't necessarily have on the outside, this kind of the guards became engulfed in who they were and what their goal was during the experiment. So I wasn't shocked, I wasn't surprised, because the labeling theory kind of predicted that if you do label a criminal, they're going to kind of become that person. And I think that when you gave each of the individuals in the experiment a label of a prisoner, warden, or a guard, they kind of were like, okay, well, if this goes on long enough, I could kind of become that person. I can, be that mean person that I'm not normally. So I think they kind of pushed their own boundaries there. I just think that this was very interesting to look at how, all of the individuals would react differently to that. So I definitely thought it was a good experiment to learn.